Well, hey, welcome back to Redefining Hustle, Navigating Success as a Christian Woman. Do you ever find yourself in a place where you're not sure which way to turn? Like, you know that you're here to glorify the Lord. You know He's given you a purpose and a mission in the marketplace, but you're at this interesting juncture where you're like, do I dream more? Do I plan on paper? Or do I let it go? And so today's guest is going to walk us through that. So join me in welcoming Polly Payne. She is the founder and CEO of Horatio Printing. She creates beautiful, stunningly beautiful. I've had them in my own hands. Planners. She teaches people how to create those kinds of products, etc. And I'm so excited to have her here. Polly, welcome.
Yay, thanks for having me on the show. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So Polly, can you give us a quick rundown, just a little bit about your journey? We just were talking offline about how the Lord positioned you, but turned your direction from what you were doing in PR and advertising, et cetera, in New York City. And let's take it back a little bit because I'd love to hear about that transition and that transformation.
Absolutely. So I moved to New York in '09 for a PR internship and thought I'd just be there for the summer. Ended up getting a job in advertising, kind of took a little turn into marketing from PR. And I turned out to be pretty successful in sales and marketing. And I really enjoyed it. I loved the city. There was so much, excitement. It was the perfect place for my 20s, I would say. And it's also where I met my husband and so many good friends. But in that journey of sales and marketing, I found that I was good at, taking people out and hanging out and all those sorts of things, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And it was actually someone at work that kept inviting me to church. And I always go back and say, like, God is the dream giver. And the deeper you connect with him, the closer you get to the real dreams and the real unlocking of your potential. And so when I finally went back to church, it was like I had this whole moment, and it was a slow journey back into living life with God. I'd put God in a box. I always loved God. I grew up in the church, but I kind of put him in a box because I didn't want him being mad at me or telling me what to do. I wanted to do my own thing and just experience all that life had, but it was killing me, truthfully. And so I started going to church in New York, and a pastor came on a local book tour, and the book was The Artisan's Soul by Erwin McManus. So the concept is that we're all artists because we're created in the image of God. We all have this creative imagination that's God-given. And because God is so creative, we are creative. And so that's why we love to create, whether that's a meal or an experience, or for me, planners and art, whatever it is. And so I bought the book, and it was literally this month, 10 years ago, I was reading the book, the month of August, because it's my birthday month. I was going out on the town, I had multiple people throwing little parties. And then it was an engagement party for my cousin and a bachelorette party for my cousin. So it was just like a crazy month. And I'll never forget laying in bed reading this book. And he really just convicted me in the most beautiful way that your life is your canvas, and it's up to you to design it with God. And it's up to you to take your time seriously and craft the life you want and the life you're called to live. And one of the things he had in the book that I loved was a checklist. In the back, there was a checklist, and one of the actions was to create a list of everything that you need to quit doing, or all your distractions. Create that list, create your exit plan, and execute it. So I got out a sketchbook. I start drawing a circle. I did like a bubble chart of all of the things that was distracting me. And one of them, and all the things in my life that was just filling up my time, because I never had free time to create, or especially not free time to read my Bible or do anything productive. So I did the bubble chart, and I wrote schmoozing clients, taking people out, because the different things I did in my job for sales. And I just had this revelation, and I felt God speak in my spirit of just, I'm turning that gift into a ministry. And I'll never forget that moment, because in that moment I felt and still feel so unqualified, so far from God, like he was so mad at me, like unusable, not enough, definitely not smart enough. And I was just blown away that he would call me and then also say, like, you're making this planner. So that's when I decided. I always wanted to make a planner, but that's when I decided I'm going to make a Christian planner, unapologetically Christian. Everyone that knows me is going to think I'm crazy because they know me. And I was kind of a party girl. And, but he had that in me, that bubbly personality, that people person personality for his calling. And it's still taken a long time for me to like step into that and walk into that. And it's been a journey, and it's filled with a lot of grace. And anyway, so that's what I made the planner, and I bought 1,000 of them. The journey of my business, um, I still kept my full-time job for a year and a half, and they were so unbelievably supportive. It was a fantastic company that I was working for that was just filled with incredible people of faith that also attended my church, which was just an insane blessing in the advertising space. And yeah, so I started the company, bought 1,000 planners, sold out of 1,000 planners, and then was like, I guess we're going to do it again. Let's make another planner. And that was, the 2015 planner. So now we're coming up. October will be our company's birthday, but this month of August is the birth of the night that the dream came about.
Oh my gosh. Polly, there's so much there that I love, and that as we speak to the women who listen to this podcast, many of them have a very lucrative business, or they have a very lucrative career, and they feel like you just said, all this outward success, but I'm feeling unfulfilled. And then it's this week's podcast episode 264 is about your past is redeemed, and how he takes our past and even the things that we want to like get rid of. And he says, no, 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 those lessons or those skills, those talents, those gifts, the ability that he gave you to be able to be in a social environment and connect and relate to people, and how he shifted that to what he's given you. I think we all long to be in that place. Thank you for being so vulnerable to share that. I know sometimes going back, we're like, I know that the Lord moved, but I don't really want to talk about it, right?
Yep.
So amazing. So, Polly, with that in mind, talk to us about this idea of, when do we dream? When do we plan? When do we let go? I labeled this on YouTube and LinkedIn God's timing for that, right?
Mm.
Because it's all up to him. It's not us. And I love what you said earlier, right? Like, I love the Lord, but I don't know that I really wanted him to be directing me. And I think that's so true for us high achievers, right? So then how do we wait on God's timing for those things?
So good. So I consider myself a dreamer for sure. Like, I think I'm a natural dreamer. And I think some of us are natural dreamers. We come up with a bunch of dreams, and some of us, like, it's like a struggle, or we go through a season where it feels super dry and you're like, I don't know how to dream. I've been surviving. I've been feeding my kids. Like, you know what I mean? Especially in like newborn seasons, or when your family grows, or health issues, whatever. It's just, it's stuck. So there's different people on different spectrums of like when to dream and God's timing. But I think what is important is to know deep down, no matter how you feel about it, you are designed to be used by God. And you have the ability to be used by God. And I think that's a big limiting belief, is like, I just don't know if he even wants to use me. And let me just say, if he could use me, he can use anybody. Fun fact, I spelled my company name wrong when I got my LLC. I lived on Horatio Street with a T, and I spelled it with a C. And there's been so many times like that where I just felt like, oh, I should quit. Like, I'm such a dummy, and like, I just kind of have to chalk it up and say, you know what, God, like, you're still going to use me. And you know what? I'm going to tell people that story now, because like, you don't have to be a brilliant business person. You don't have to be the best artist. You just have to be willing to be used. And so just know you can be used by God. And of course, there's this balance between, okay, I know there's more. I want to do things. And also, I'm supposed to surrender everything, right? It's all surrendered to his timing. So, how do you balance that? Am I supposed to sit around and wait? Am I supposed to take action? Am I not supposed to take action? I think that's one of the biggest issues. And I think some people get caught up in like, okay, well, don't do anything because how dare you take action in your own strength? But I think some people hide behind that because they are scared to fail. And by saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let God do it all," I look like a mightier Christian because I'm not doing anything.
Mm.
And so, and we're called to be persistent. We're called to pray in faith, and we're
Right.
called to take action and walk with
Yeah.
Jesus. We're not called to sit on a couch and watch Jesus. We're called to walk with him and
Mm.
live. So, just because you're not in control of all the outcomes doesn't mean you're not supposed to take action. Um, you have a role, and I've had some people ask me like, "All right, so is it like 100? Is it like 50-50? Like God does 50 and I do 50, or is that presumptuous? I should do 10, he should do 90. I should
Yeah.
probably do one, he should probably do 99. Like, how do I honor God and
Mm.
take action?" And what I've come up with is it's 100, 100.
Yeah. Love
You
that.
bring your 100 and God brings his 100. Luckily, his 100, is 100 times more than ours.
Yes.
But my pastor used to say, God will do what you can't do, but he's not going to do what you can do.
Mm. Right.
Like if you want the job, we don't sit on our couch and wait for a job to come to us. We edit our resume. We send it out. I had someone in print school the other day. She was launching her planner on Kickstarter to like pre-fund the entire order, and she walked her planner right into her pastor's office and says, "Hey, I'd love for you to pray over this. Like I have this big dream, and I am, about to fund this print and press play on this big dream of mine." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, let me look at this." And he prayed over that planner. He said,
Mm.
"Do you want to come speak? I think we want to have you on stage 2 Sundays from now to come tell your story because this is an incredible testimony of you walking out your dream with God." And I told the other students, I said, she got that blessing because she walked through the door,
Right.
and so we still have the responsibility of stewarding our time,
Mm.
of stewarding our resources, of stewarding our imagination.
Yeah.
We have this God-given imagination on purpose, and it's up to us to use it. So, anyways, that's kind of my setup there. But when do we dream? That's a great question. And it's not like a one size fits all, right? Some
Right.
people are natural dreamers, and some people are stuck.
Yeah.
But I would say at a minimum, you want to sit down and dream over your life at least once a year. And
Mm.
I would say more than that. If you haven't dreamed and you're like, I haven't done it in forever, then like make time this week, make time this weekend, set up a dreaming date for yourself. And the biggest way that you do that is you create space. You
Mm.
make time for it. You create a space and a time to dream. And my favorite way to dream healthy dreams is with good, healthy questions. The red flag dreaming is where you just scroll on Instagram and you see other people's
Ooh.
dreams and you go, "Ooh, I want to do that." There's nothing like absolutely wrong with that. Like sometimes it is nice to get a inspo of a place to go on a vacation because your friend went. Like there's nothing like technically wrong with that. But if all our dreams are, "Ooh, they did it, I want it, they did it, I
Mm.
want it," that's not healthy and it won't be fulfilling.
That's right.
It won't fulfill you deep down.
Yeah.
And it's also sometimes unobtainable because it's not the dream God gave you, it's the dream they had.
Yeah, and can I just interrupt you for a second because what I love about that, Polly, is like it's one thing to get inspiration, it's another thing to end up in comparison and coveting, right?
Mhm.
But what you just said, like it's not attainable because it's not the dream that God gave you. I see us and sometimes and listen, raising my hand, that we look at those things or we're women in business and we look at the person who's selling, who's the Amazon and New York Times bestseller, or they're on these stages, or they're earning this income and all the things. And we don't want to we that's painful to say it's not attainable because we want to think we can attain anything, right? I can do all things through Christ, right? But what if that's not what he's given you to do? Whew.
Yeah. And also that scripture, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The few lines back, he's talking about I can be content in all circumstances,
Exactly.
whether hungry or full,
Right.
I can do all things. I can be content in all seasons.
Yeah.
You know, we can we can do all things through Christ, but he's not calling us to do all the things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So my favorite question when it comes to dreaming, because healthy dreams come from healthy questions, and healthy dreams come from healthy hearts.
Mm,
Period. Above all else, guard your heart. Everything you do flows from it. So if we have a heart that's bitter, we're going to have bitter dreams. If we have a heart that's scared and scarcity, we're going to have scarcity dreams.
mm.
If we're worried about the zombie apocalypse, we're going to have zombie apocalypse dreams. I mean, truly, that's how it works. And so if we have a healthy heart, for me, that comes from healthy questions and healthy dreaming. So a healthy question, one of my favorite is, who do I want to become? Because when we become more and more and more of who we're called to become, God can lay the dream on you and you can carry it.
Ooh.
Because we can't carry some dreams that God has for us. I like to believe, like, a dream that God has for me in 10 years, I might not be ready for that right now. I certainly
Yeah.
wasn't ready for some of the dreams I'm carrying now.
Yeah. Yeah.
My character wasn't ready. My systems in my business weren't ready.
Right.
We have to grow. And
Mm,
so the best dream we can have is to grow and to become who we're called to become. Because if your marriage is on the rocks,
right.
God can't put a big business blessing on you. It might break things up. It
Amen.
might ruin something, right? If your health is on the line, he can't bring you a whole nother career jump, right? Like, we have to get healthy. And
Yeah.
so the more healthy we can become and pouring into the parts of us that need a little air in the tire, a little,
Mm,
love, more sleep, whatever it is for you. We all have areas that are on fire in our life, right? Areas we're neglecting,
right.
areas we're maybe not dreaming in. By becoming more healthy, that's when God can speak in and say, "Hey, here's this dream. You can carry it now."
Yeah.
Because all,
Mm,
all big dreams can be heavy, right?
yeah.
Having a kid, great dream, it can feel heavy.
Yes. Yes.
Having two babies,
Yeah.
heavy. And so that's my big question. So that would be, if you're like, when do I dream? Where do I dream? How do I start? My big place of starting is to sit down with the question, who do I want to become? And that's a part of the planner in the front. It's, you assess how you're doing in all areas, physically, spiritually, financially, professionally. In my marriage, if you're married, that's an alternative one. In my motherhood, that's an alternative one. In my home, like, how are you doing?
Mm,
And then why did you give yourself that rating? And how can I pour into that every week? What's my one thing in every category? And so that would be my
mhm.
challenge to you, is to dream with you, because you being healthy is what's going to allow you to carry the big dreams you have. And maybe that's what you've been missing, is,
Yeah.
I need to take care of these things so my other dreams can grow. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's so, so good. And by the way, everyone, we'll have the link to the planner in the show notes. So don't worry about that. You'll be able to go get that. Okay, so now we've dreamed. When do we make the plan?
Yeah. So we have to show up for ourselves. That's kind of the key to success. If we don't show up, which we're always usually the one person we flake on first. And I say that because I'm guilty of it. And we all are. We're gonna put other people's needs first, typically, right? Versus our own. It's just kind of what it is. I don't know why, but that's just what it is. So I know that because I've done it, and I do it. So the first plan is who we want to become. And I kind of alluded to that in the sense that once you figure out what areas of your life need nurturing, where you have like the nail in your tire, that's what we plan in our schedule. Like, for me, I have time in my week that's investing in my marriage. We do that every Sunday night. We have a marriage journal. It's called the marriage journal. It's a great tool. And every Sunday night, we answer 6 questions. We don't always talk about it. If you're getting started on the marriage journal, the first 2 weeks are the hardest because you have to work through some stuff. But then after that, it's really easy. And so we sit down and we talk about what was hard this week, what brought you joy this week, how can I pray for you this week, what's one thing I can do for you this week, and what's a big dream on your heart that you're looking forward to. And it's a connection point. And that is how I make sure there's not a nail in that part of my wheel. And then professionally, how am I pouring into that? Which I have certain areas in my life that are always really typically more filled, like the gas tank's full. And so for that, I don't have to really change anything. I just keep showing up. It's important to look at the areas that are low first, because typically those are the areas we don't like to look at, and that's why they're low. We don't like to goal plan spiritually, or we don't like to goal plan in our finances, maybe because I don't want to look at my budget. Like I don't want to look. I don't want to know. And so whatever area that is for you, that's what needs love in this season. And we're holistic beings. Like everything connects together. And so that would be what I would challenge you with is you need to start planning in your week ways to pour into yourself. Now, if we're wanting to think about big dreams like I have this business, when do I start planning? Or I want to start a business. When do I start these other big dreams? My place to start with that is talk to people who've gone down the road. That's like the best advice. Talk to someone who's done it. The last thing you want to do when you have a beautiful new infant dream, and maybe God spoke to you at church when you were worshiping, or you caught a vision or something exciting, is to talk to a pessimistic loved one who's never done it before. And it's totally out of their comfort zone. That's not the best place to plant a dream seed. As much as like they're a loved one or someone you enjoy and you love, that's not the place to plant it. Talk to someone who's done it. Find that person, seek them out, get coffee. And that's where you want to get the plan from, because you don't want to just make up a plan. You want to get the plan from someone who's done it.
One of the things that you said really shifted just now how I think of planning when you said, it's really planning to give time and space to those things that need the love, those things that have the nail in the tire. And so often as women in business, we think, oh, the plan is what are my goals and what does my day look like and all that. But we're so often, as you said, missing the point of if our health is not in a great place, the Lord can't lay a big dream on that. We can't possibly carry it. If our marriage is not in a great place, guess what? The Lord is not going to give you a big dream around your business that would put your marriage at jeopardy. He just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so thinking of that plan as where are the places that I need to show love? Where are those places that need more attention from me as the plan? That's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Often our schedule, which I'm so guilty of this. It's taken me like 10 years to really like hone in on this kind of stuff. But for so long, I realized my schedule was 2 things: surviving and people pleasing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, we've got to figure it out. We got to live like, budget, and then it's like, all right, what's all the things I committed to? So I don't mess anybody up. I don't, make anyone mad at me. I don't drop any balls at work, and that's what it is. A lot of times it's okay. How can I make sure I don't drop any balls and disappoint anybody? And then survival. And there's no space.
That's right.
Of taking care of you so you can grow and become who you're called to become. And sometimes becoming who you're called to become looks like education. It looks like I need to go take a course on XYZ because that's what I want to become. Like I want to be a pilot. Okay, I've got to sign up and then I've got to log the flight hours, and that's in my schedule. I want to be a present parent. Where is that in your schedule?
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, well, it doesn't have to be 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I have to be present 24/7 to be a good mom.
Right.
No, you need to have good eye contact a certain number of times a day or a week. you have to start somewhere,
Right.
give yourself grace. And so having dedicated time that is like family time, family night, and really making the most of it is going to be more
Mm.
powerful than just a lot of time that's wishy-washy, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on the planning. We wanna you want make a priority to pour into yourself.
Yeah. One of the things that I heard in a trainer once, she said, "Wherever you are, be present.
Mm,
If you're working, be present. But if you're with your family, be present. Don't sit on your phone doing things in either situation, right? To be intentional in that." And Jesus was present. He had
mhm,
a lot of people clamoring for his time, and he worked with big groups, small groups, one on one. We see this, right, all through the gospels. He was always present. And
mhm.
sometimes that presence meant, no, I'm not going to that next city. I'm going to be with my father.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
and
before we oh, sorry, go ahead.
the other big thing with your schedule is you have to the people pleasing part of our
Mhm.
schedule, that's probably the biggest killer because that means you're saying yes to everybody. And
Yes.
Jesus didn't say yes to everybody either.
No, he did not.
He went off by himself. He did
Yeah.
retreats, silent retreats alone,
Yeah.
How about we
Yeah.
all take that on?
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, I
Mhm.
love that. He didn't say yes to everybody. It's true.
Mhm.
Before we go to letting go, what happens when we get stuck in the dreaming and we know we need to make a plan, but we're afraid, like we're afraid to take that step? What is going on there?
Mm. I think typically it's a
Mm,
perfectionism because either, like, I don't wanna make a plan I know unless I know it's perfect,
yeah.
or it's some sort of mix of the fear of failure, fear of judgment. Like, if I actually start to do this, then I'm gonna be judged by people,
Mm,
and it also could fail, which leads to more judgment. And so that's just the fear of failure. And I love what Sarah Blakely talks about. Like, failure is a win.
yeah.
And reframing it. Like, her dad would sit at the dinner table and say, "What did you fail at today?" And it would be a tryout, or I tried this, or I did that. And like, he would high five his kids for failing.
Right.
And we have to look at this life of, God put you in here to learn, and you're not going to do everything perfectly the first
No.
time.
Yeah.
And so we have to be willing to be bold,
Yeah.
to try a thing, and
Right.
say, okay, if it succeeds, what's the best outcome? If it fails, what's the worst outcome?
Right.
Can I live with that? And like,
Yeah.
why does that bug me so much?
Mm,
And
mhm.
that's something we kind of have to just process. I would recommend journaling over that. Like, why
Yeah.
am I so afraid of this?
Yeah.
And what's the worst thing that could happen? And what could I stand to learn even if it does fail?
Yeah, one of the things that I often will say to my clients is, do you trust that God can redeem anything that you can screw up? Like for real, right? If this is what's held you back, can you take one step and say, Lord, I'm going to take this step and I am trusting that you're going to redirect me, you're going to redeem it, whatever you're going to do. But we have to step in faith because, like you said earlier, like God can do what you can't, but he's not going to do what you can, and he's waiting for you to step. Remember
Mhm,
that he's invited us to be co-laborers. He
mhm,
could do all this without us. He chooses not to.
mm.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. What about letting go? Because sometimes, and I just finished writing a chapter about personal growth and friendships. It's coming out in a book in November. And what I realized looking back is where I held on to things that God was moving out of my life because the season was over, but I thought it was for a lifetime, or the reason had changed, but I thought it was for a season. What about letting go?
Mm. Letting go can be really painful. The idea of letting go can be even more painful than the actual act of
Ooh,
letting
yes.
go, because what God has for us is new levels of freedom. He has new levels of freedom, and where we think we're losing something, he's like, "No, no, I have freedom, freedom,
Mm,
freedom. I have a new level to take you to." And so it's kind of like when you purge your closet for the first time and you're like, oh no. And then you realize how amazing it is. You're like, this was better than shopping. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why I feel 10 pounds lighter, literally,
Right.
but while you're purging, you're like, but I wore this on a date with my husband, and like the
20
seams
years
falling
ago.
out. Yeah.
Right.
And like, why am I holding on to this? It's
Yes.
moth ridden. Anyway, so um here's some good advice I got that I love. When it comes to a dream, sometimes we do give up too soon.
Mm,
And so the best advice I got for like a business dream is have a firm goal, but be flexible with how you get there. Because the way God works is usually never the way we think it's going to work anyway.
that's
So
right.
we have to be flexible when we are co-laboring with God. So if it
Yes.
doesn't happen at the time, the way you expected it, that's get used to it. That's life. That's
That's
life
right.
with God.
That's right.
But there's nothing wrong with having a good firm goal. Yeah, you can change when it might happen, but have the firm goal, but be flexible. Whether that's a business thing or a big dream you have and a prayer you have in your heart, like be flexible.
Mm,
Stay close to God because He will tell you when to lay something down. And
mm,
sometimes we have to lay things down in a season to get healthy in other places so we can carry the dream. And I think sometimes we get burnt out. The dream can be an idol, and we can just be plowing through for the sake of it because we
mm.
want to be enough. We
Yes.
want to matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of our human nature because we want to create, we want things to be excellent. Like we're created in the image of God. He made the earth. Like we're going to want to create things. But,
Exactly.
but if it's killing you,
Mm,
if it's killing the parts of you that matter in your motherhood or your marriage and those things,
that's
we
right.
might need to lay it down for a bit
Yeah.
and take it
Yeah.
to God and say, Do I need to cut back and get back to dreaming of who you want to become, planning the time to take care of yourself, um, to pour into yourself so you can carry it
Mm,
because big dreams are heavy. So that
yes.
would be my big piece of advice there. And ultimately, when do you let go? You're always letting go of your dreams with God because they're all supposed to be surrendered.
Mm,
They're not your validation, they're not your identity.
that's right.
We don't boast in our own self. We're supposed to boast if God wills it, this is what it is.
Yes.
So the first year in my bucket list that I actually surrendered all my dreams to God, and I wrote it in the circle in the middle, thy will be done. And I had all my dreams around it. But the first year I really did that, they all happened. And I don't say that like that's the magic formula. That's
Right.
not like the
Right.
spell that you do, for God to like move, but there's something there. Like when you
Yeah.
fully surrender the outcome to God, that is that's everything. You
Yes.
have to just keep surrendering it. And
Yeah.
maybe you surrender and he says, "Okay, step back." Maybe you
Yeah.
surrender and he says, "Hey, go here." Um, so that's kind of my thing is you're always letting it go.
I love the perspective of that, Polly, because if we are always fully surrendering, then the moments of letting go aren't as big and earth shattering as we make them to be, right? Because they're all His anyway.
Mhm.
I love that perspective and to stay close to Him because the closer you are to Him, the more you know His voice, right? The more you obviously know His character, the more you will be in tune with Him saying it's time to walk away from that, right? And vice versa, right? Like there may be things that you're praying, Lord, take this out of my life. And He says, no, this needs to stay, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. That is so good. Oh, Polly, I have loved, loved, loved this conversation. What is one thing that you would leave our audience with around when to dream, when to plan, when to let go?
Never be afraid to just pick it up and erase
Oh.
and start again. Like
Oh, yeah.
every day is a fresh canvas, every day is a new beginning. His grace is new every morning. So it doesn't matter what you've been walking through, what you've done personally, what's been done to you. Like let's get the eraser out. We can't paint or
Yes.
draw until we make space.
Yeah.
So start with making some space and
Mhm.
pick it up again.
Ooh, that's good. What do we have to erase, right, to allow him to have his way with what we're doing?
Mhm.
That's so good. Polly, it has been such a joy to have you on and to cover this topic, which, as we talked about before we started, like, I feel like this is such a timely topic because we're in August, September is coming, school is gonna be starting, and the noise and the decibel of that sound of get more done, make it happen before year end, and all the roar of that is coming. We know the election is coming. This is not a political show, so we're not talking about that. But the point is the noise, the distraction, everything is going to be ramping up.
Yeah, and the
So,
economy, like,
yeah.
people are gonna I hear it all the time, just messages of hopelessness or like, "Oof,
Yes.
don't" "Oof," me and my husband were gonna make a decision the other day, and he's like, "Let's wait till after the election," and I'm like, "Why?" Like,
Right.
I have hope now. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I just, wanna encourage you guys, do what you need to do to take care of your tire and your life and your wheel through the end of the year.
Yeah.
Do you need to delete social media? Do you need to have personal health check-in days? Do you need a therapist? Do you
Right.
need a spiritual director? What do you need?
Yeah.
And to take care of you, because you have to become who you're called to become so you can carry out the purpose and the calling God has for you.
Yeah.
And so, and that requires hope. And
Yeah.
so whatever you need to do to stay hopeful when the world is hopeless, do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let that light shine because you don't know who you will impact by showing up with that hopefulness.
Mhm.
Yes. Polly, tell everyone how they can best connect with you.
Yeah. So I have a podcast, the Dream Printing Podcast, where I primarily help other people who want to print their own thing. Like, I've made my planners. And so if you want to learn more about that, maybe you have a devotional on your heart or a journal or a mental health journal or a planner you've been wanting to make, you can learn more at that podcast. Dream Printing Podcast. I also have HoratioPrinting.com, which is my website where I sell planners. And our 2025 collection is coming September 24th. So that's coming up soon. We're launching the whole collection. We're currently sold out. So the next planners are coming soon. And then I'm also doing a 5-day challenge starting September 9th. If you want to come hang out and work on your idea together, that's at HoratioPrinting.com/print.
Yes. Horatio with a C.
Yes.
I love that story. I love that story. Polly, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, as I always say, I pray that this blessed you today. I pray that even one small thing the Holy Spirit moved. Maybe it was like a tiny little word that we said, and the Holy Spirit moved in your heart. But whatever that may be, as always, I pray for and encourage you to tune out the world, tune into God's truth, and turn up your focus as you walk out your mission in the marketplace because navigating success with Him is the only way to go for true growth and impact. I'll see you on the next episode. Friend, I pray that this episode and this conversation with Polly Payne on when to dream, when to plan, when to let go has truly blessed you today. Please be sure to connect with her as the links in the show notes direct you. And be sure that you go subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can catch the video of this episode as well.